Welcome everybody to the Ready Player One Book Club. My name is CleverDingbat. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This is our session 1. We are going to be getting into chapters 0 through 4 this evening, which covers the prologue. We're going to get into a little bit of world building. We're going to get into some personalities, and it looks like also we've got setting the stage, where we're at. Going over the basics of the contest, all that kind of stuff, and it's gonna be a fun time, guys. I'm very excited to get into this stuff with you all, and it should be a lot of fun here. In chapter 0, we meet James Halliday, and our focus of narration, Wade Watts, and we meet James Halliday on a very interesting day for him. We meet James Halliday on the day that he has essentially died. He's died, and he has left behind a message for the entire world that he has created, the Oasis, right? The Oasis is this massive multiplayer online video game in which everyone is attached to in some way. Like, business is done through it. It's the currency in the game is worth more than the dollar or the euro, things like that. So like the Oasis has essentially molded and reshaped the world. There's been widespread disasters, there's energy shortages, there's climate change, and just war going on. Everyone wants to escape, this reality and escape into the virtual reality that is the Oasis, because the outside world honestly is just a shitty place to be in the world that he lives. Like, the world he lives in is just a very shitty place. Yeah, exactly. The terrible poverty that is going on. People live in stacks. But we'll get into that in the other chapters. I want to get into James Halliday. So this is just like the part of the Oasis and why he built it, right? So let's get to James Halliday. We come to him on the day of his funeral, and we're seeing him in this really odd message to the world. It's like the greatest music video / tribute to someone that has ever been made. He essentially goes out in this very Howard Hughes-esque style, which is just so over the top. Like his funeral, like he's got tons of 80s characters all there. The John Hughes crew is all there, from Pretty in Pink and The Breakfast Club. You've got other 80s icons as well there. I can't remember all the ones that they mentioned, but essentially just think of like an 80s montage scene of all like the movies that you used to watch in the 80s, and they will all be there surrounding him, coming to his funeral. Isn't it all online? Yes, the message is being delivered online, right? So like, this is a totally virtual funeral. It's not you can't attend it or anything like that. This is just a message that is going out to the world. And it opens up with him dancing by himself to a song called Dead Man's Party by Oingo Boingo. And for those that don't know, I have a Spotify playlist that I will link in the description. Or if you're in Twitch chat, you can type !playlist, and you will you'll get a link to the Ready Player One playlist. Oingo Boingo's Dead Man's Party is on there, in case you want to hear the song. Halliday lets us know that he wants to essentially give away his entire stake, all of his controlling stock of his company, and complete control of the Oasis, to one person. And it's the one person that finds his Easter egg, because he loved a video game by the name of Adventure, which was coded by a man named Warren Robinette, who created the world's very first video game Easter egg, which was essentially just his name. This video game created by Warren Robinette, because back in the day, video game designers and developers did not get credit for the things that they made, because they were contracted by the company to make the game. The company did not want to give them a credit for the title. So the way they got around this, Warren Robinette geniusly just figured a way of doing it, was to create an Easter egg. They also made really crappy money. This is true. Halliday's really inspired by this. So what does he do? He decides that he is going to make a contest that is based on that is to find his Easter egg. And in order to do so, the participants will have to find a copper, jade, or we'll have to find 3 keys. There's a copper key, a jade key, and a crystal key. And they unlock gates, corresponding gates. So they got to find the key. They take the key to the gate. They open the gate. And once they get inside the gate, then they're going to be tested. And you have to pass the test in order to get the next clue, to get the next key, to go to the next gate, to be tested again. And it's basically this long chain of events of finding a clue, getting an item, going to a place, doing a thing, taking on a massive test. And that's the journey that we're all going to be going on essentially throughout the rest of this book. It's also explained that James Halliday is a very eccentric man. He talks about Anorak's, or they talk about Anorak's Almanac here in the prologue, which is the downloadable content of essentially Halliday's entire life. It's journals that he had written. In the movie, they depict it a little bit differently, because they depict it as video recordings of his life. Like, you can go back to any day, anytime, that sort of thing. But here in the Oasis, it's a downloadable journal filled with files, audio files, audio files, video files, things that Halliday loved. It's all of his favorite things, including journal entries. Like, it's not talked about, but this is what I feel like it is, right? I honestly think it's Halliday's consciousness downloaded. Like, when he died, he uploaded his consciousness into the Oasis. They don't say this, but this much content to me that is there, I feel like it's him in code. And they touch on this a little bit in the movie too, but we'll get into that later. Essentially, these people that are trying to find Easter eggs, they're originally they called themselves egg hunters. Makes sense, right? Like all good gamers, our names have to be shortened. You got to come up with a nickname for something. So egg hunters becomes gunters. So anyone that is going after Halliday's Easter egg is a gunter. Now, there's 2 different types of gunters. There's solos, who are not clanned up, and then there are gunter clans. Solos do not ask for help from anyone, ever. It's frowned upon. Clans help each other out. That's basically it. Almost, we're picking up in the book at chapter 1. Is 5 years after this event. So the day that Halliday dies, this video message and his almanac are available worldwide, everywhere. This video is played on every major media outlet. Like, think of it like his death was such a major event that every display in Times Square in New York City would be playing this thing, right? Like, total, like, what it kind of reminds me of is, it reminds me of if you've ever seen V for Vendetta, and how V takes over he hacks in and takes over all the video communication devices. Well, Halliday controls pretty much all of the video communication devices because of the Oasis and its integration with everything in the world. And because most people just, all their devices connect to it. So he controls all of those. So the minute he dies, this message goes out to the world. And it's essentially his last will and testament. We're 5 years plus or minus 2045 here, which is 25 years in the future for us. And that's essentially the prologue, right? So that covers the prologue. It's basically just Halliday telling us, hey, I'm going to give you the plot of the whole thing is control over the thing that Halliday built. And of course the money. This is the journey our characters are going to go on. They're going to be trying to get this Easter egg. So then we move on to chapter 1. It opens up with gunshots from the real world of our narrator, who we find out his name is Wade Watts. He's 18 years old. He is obsessed with all things 80s, video games, classic TV shows. Wade is he is watching episodes of Family Ties and playing Robotron 2084. These are a couple of the things that they name drop immediately. We find out about Wade's parents. We find out that they're both dead and they died, and he is living with his aunt in the stacks, which are essentially, in the future, as the population continues to grow, there becomes it becomes much more effective to stack housing units in order to make the most to get the most population per square mile. So they stack trailers, they stack buses, they stack anything that they can weld onto scaffolding, and they'll go high. They don't want to go above, God, I can't remember. Is it 30 or 40? They don't want to go over 30 or 40 units high because they have a tendency to fall because they get too heavy. And this causes massive problems. Because as you can imagine, the stacks, it's basically like dozens of trailers that are stacked on top of each other. And you can have other things in there too. This kind of, resembles, like, if you think about it, it resembles old 8-bit platformers, like how they, have things stacked and built up, and are connected by ladders and that sort of stuff, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, it's a subtle nod. You have these things stacked. That's what he's living in. Those are the types of conditions. These are essentially slums. And it's the Oasis is what keeps the people distracted. There's good Wi-Fi connections. There's good Wi-Fi connections there in the stacks. So at least there's that. And it helps these people that are living in this. We find Wade, as the chapter opens, inside the laundry room of his aunt's trailer. That's his room. His room is the laundry room. He stays in there because it is warm and it doesn't smell as bad as the rest of the trailer. Wade has his laptop there. His aunt, she goes in to do some laundry and sees that he has a laptop and she wants him to hand it over. Why does she want him to hand it over? Well, because they want to pawn it so they can pay rent, because they need to be able to afford rent. It feels really bad. I feel really bad for him because of it. But luckily, Wade has a hideout where he stashes the majority of his extra hard drives, his extra laptops, things that he finds in the trash and builds back up and repairs. Wade turns out to be a pretty good tech support guy. So he can rebuild broken laptops and that sort of thing, and that's how he kind of makes what little money he does have. He does have a generator inside of his hideout that he uses to, you know, connect to the Oasis, go to school. It's a place for him to, you know, get away from his terrible home life with his aunt and his uncle. I think it's mentioned that in the future that programming and building computers is kind of a rite of passage for Gunters or something. Yes, 100%. It is. You have to program your first like 2D video game. Wade uses this bicycle to power his van, or his hideout, which is inside of a van. This is, like I said, this hideout. This is where Wade has his backup computers. He's got extra hard drives, his Oasis gear, his student issued Oasis console to connect into the Oasis and go to school. He doesn't want to take these things, you know, back to his aunt, back to the trailer, because he knows that they're just going to get swiped and they're going to get pawned. Because his aunt and his uncle, they do get food vouchers from, you know, being able to claim Wade as a dependent, but that's all. Like, and Wade apparently, and also it's worth mentioning too, this trailer has 5 different families inside of it. It is a 2 or 3 bed room trailer that has about 5 other families living in it. I think it's said in the book, I think it's directly said in the chapter, if I remember correctly, there's about 15 people living in this trailer. And Wade lives in, like I said, the laundry room. So he had to get out and find a secret place where he can stash his stuff so that no one's going to take it. Because apparently rent is hard to come by. But by the end of this chapter, we see, you know, Wade go to his van. Even though his first laptop gets stolen, he wipes it. And so like none of his data will still be on it, and hands that one over. We end this chapter seeing Wade in his van, in his hideout, putting on his haptic gloves and his visor, getting ready for school. And the chapter ends with 3 words, which is the title of the book, Ready Player One, because this is the very first thing that you see when you log into the Oasis. Wade's avatar, he chooses to name it Parzival. Why Parzival? Arthurian knight. Yes, he was the Arthurian knight who was tasked with finding the Holy Grail. So he chooses Parzival because Parzival is going to be the guy to go after and find the Easter egg. So he is the Arthurian knight who goes to search. Parzival, the Arthurian knight, was going after the Grail, and the Grail equals Easter egg. Parzival is going after the Halliday's Easter egg. So he materializes in the Oasis. We find out that Wade pretty much does this by when he logs in, he's doing this for school. We find out a lot of really interesting things. At school, they cannot use their avatars' names. So like it'll be essentially your first name and a number. So Wade 3 is, I'm pretty sure it's Wade 3 is Wade Watts's school avatar name, and that's what he goes by in school, because the teachers don't want you they don't want to have to, like, you know, call on a student by a very unprofessional name, like, you know, Cushmaster 420, please turn in your book report, or something like that. They don't want this type of behavior going on from their students. So we also learn about the Sixers. They're our bad guys, essentially. IOI, the Innovative Online Solutions, they want to take control of Gregarious Games because Gregarious Games, you know, they have the Oasis. The Oasis generates tons of money. IOI wants to monetize this game better to suck every living cent out of you that you possibly can. In my opinion, this is kind of an analogy for microtransactions on everything in video games. That's essentially what they want to do. It's the true evil, microtransactioning this shit out of everything in this world. And Innovative Online Solutions, or IOI, these are the guys who are going to do it. All their employees' numbers, that when you're an employee at IOI, you are just a number. That is stated in the text as well. And they are called Sixers. Why? Because the number starts with 6. So they're the Sixers. There's also a very unique name that they eventually that Wade and his friends like to use for them, which is called the Suxors. So we learn that Wade has a crush in this chapter as well, and he has a crush on Artemis, who is a fellow Gunter, and as he puts it, a real cyber babe. Artemis has this blog, and she talks about, you know, she's essentially a Twitch streamer. She also has a blog and lots of other things. She streams her encounters, and she blogs about, like, you know, going out and finding things. She blogs her adventures about going, you know, to find various different things. One of the things that he mentions, she talks about, is dividing up, you know, the John Hughes films into the dorky girl movies versus the dorky guy movies. In the Oasis school system, Wade can just mute bullies. People that bully him, he can just mute them. He doesn't have to listen to their shit. I can see how that would come in pretty handy in high school. It's something I wish I had back in the day. It would have been great. There's also this message board for all Gunters called the Hatchery. We learn about it as well. And it's where, like, Gunters will post, you know, pieces of information. And that's where Artemis's blog, that's where it lives. It lives in the Hatchery. We see something really interesting, which we'll get into more in the next chapter, which is Wade sends an invitation to his best friend H to join a chat room so they can chat with each other. So, in the next chapter, we essentially do that. This is going to be H's basement. Wade enters the chat room with H. They go into H's basement. So H's basement is like the total nerd cave, right? Like, this is a guy who lives in this, he doesn't live, this is his chat room. He has it set up as if it is, you know, I mean, I like when I think of this, I like to think of it, it's that 70s, the basement in that 70s show, but much nerdier. It's obviously a basement room, so he's going to have posters and video game memorabilia and everything all over the walls. There's old issues of magazines laying there on the coffee table, spread around the room. He probably has beanbag chairs scattered everywhere with video game consoles and controllers. They talk about playing the Intellivision. It's mentioned that Wade has an Intellivision controller in his hands, and he tosses one over to H to play. To avoid iRok playing with him. We meet two new characters here. We meet H, who is Parzival's best friend. They are fellow Gunters. They are both extremely knowledgeable. They are essentially Halliday scholars. And then we also meet iRok. iRok's a jerk. He's a poser. He's a guy who has money, but does not have any of the knowledge to back it up. He says he's a Gunter, but he's only 10th level because he got there because he was able to buy it. This is what we call pay to win. iRok represents pay to win. Parzival is not pay to win. He hasn't spent a dime on this game and doesn't ever intend on spending a dime on the game. But he has a very, very strict, and but it's not about the game. It's about the egg hunt, because these guys are doing everything that they can in order to get the Easter egg. That's their goal. That's their game. The Oasis is secondary. The Oasis is just the place where this game's taking place. And the actual, experience of this game, it doesn't matter how many levels you have. It's about how much knowledge you have. And iRok has 0 knowledge, but he has 10 levels in the Oasis, which doesn't amount to shit. It might as well just be cosmetics. At least to H and Wade. Don't get me wrong, levels and items and all that stuff is going to make this stuff easier for him, but it's pay to win to a degree. You'll see. We also learn about Lady Hawk in here, which is the movie we watched this weekend, which is actually better than I thought it was going to be. I have seen bits and pieces of it when I was younger, I believe, but I'd never sat through the whole thing. Interesting movie. Really weird soundtrack for it, though. But I digress. So this stars Matthew Broderick and Michelle Pfeiffer, as well as Rutger Hauer. H is giving Parzival shit for liking the movie. H is giving shit Parzival for liking the movie. Parzival is also giving H shit for liking the Ewok movies from Star Wars, like the Battle for Endor and the Caravan of Courage. So these guys are giving each other shit for liking the things that they like back and forth. And it's a funny exchange. H hollowly threatens to ban Parzival from his chat room if he continues to bash the Endorians, which are the Ewoks. And it's really funny that he calls them Endorians. And then iRok comes in to the conversation after this, and they go through. iRok comes in to the basement, and he's talking trash to Parzival, and H is just sitting back and just watching this exchange happen between iRok and Parzival, because iRok is just being a complete and utter douche to the guy. He's being rude for no reason. And Parzival is, Parzival's not taking it. He's dishing it back. But then he kind of hits Wade with a low blow by saying, "You don't have any money to get anywhere. I gave you a lift off world at one point." Because it's also worth mentioning, it's also worth mentioning that in order to travel around the Oasis, you have to have credits. That's how Gregarious Games makes their money. They make their money because the Oasis is free. They make their money based on teleportation fees. So if you want to say you want to travel, there is no fast travel. So if you want to travel from the planet that Parzival's school on is called Ludus. We'll get to that in a second. I'm just using that name because I'm about to use it in an analogy for a second. If you want to travel from planet Ludus to planet Doom, for example, there is going to be a cost in that travel. You have to. It's like in World of Warcraft when you pay for a flight from one place to another in Azeroth. It's essentially that. That's how they make their money. It's not a lot of money, but over time it adds up. And Wade doesn't get a whole lot of credits in the Oasis to begin with. Mostly whenever he travels somewhere, he ends up making very little money where he goes to travel, and will earn back just enough to travel back. So when Wade goes somewhere, he's going somewhere with an intention, and that intention is to get to a place or location in order to learn something or do something with regard to the egg hunt. If he's got a hunch or something like that, that's why he goes there. Or he may try to go there to get up some levels in order to make the next place that he wants to go for this egg hunt a little bit easier for him to get to. Gunters are notorious for playing the game of one-upmanship. So iRok comes in and he holds up a copy of Sword Quest, which is an old Atari game from 1982. There were 3 or 4 sequels, and there was a contest around these games, and items were given away. So, and Sword Quest was the unofficial sequel, essentially, to Adventure, which is the game that Halliday got the idea for doing an Easter egg on. So then you have Adventure having the Easter egg, and now you have Sword Quest with the contest. So Easter egg contest, even though Sword Quest is the unofficial, sequel to Adventure. This is where they think Halliday got the idea. And iRok produces this like it is, the missing link of all information in the hunt for Halliday's Easter egg. And then Parzival proceeds to put him in his place and tell him all the information about dude, you're just now finding out about the Sword Quest series. And then iRok's like, oh really? Well then who coded it? Parzival tells him. Who, he'll ask him like 5 million different questions, and Parzival has every answer and then gives him information on top of that he didn't know. It takes H to ask him a question that even will begin to tax Parzival's brain, right, about this, because he's so in depth with Halliday pop culture and understands it so well. This series was nothing to him. He was like, oh yeah, this was like day one, research for me. Like every Gunter worth their salt knows about this series because of how closely related to Adventure it is, and the fact that there was a contest series based on these games. It's not a coincidence. But he puts iRok in his place, and iRok leaves because he gets embarrassed. Even though he produced this video game out of nothing, and it was just blah. That's where we end chapter 3. We end chapter 3 with iRok leaving H's basement, and Parzival and H talk about what they're going to do later in the day, because it's getting near school time now. And all the people that, there were other people in there just kind of hanging out with Parzival, H, and iRok. But Parzival, H, and iRok were the 3 main characters, right? So everybody else in the chat room's kind of leaving. They're going about their school day. But Parzival and H make plans to watch some TV after school. And then Parzival has to get to class. In all honesty, Ready Player One is a tale of 2 worlds. There is the world outside that is completely and utterly just a trashed planet, for lack of a better term. Humans don't give a shit about it. Living conditions are terrible. You have trailers stacked on top of each other so that you can have a more densely populated area. Crime and all that sort of thing are rampant. So you have the Oasis, which comes in, and the Oasis helps distract from how shit that world is. Wade tells us the history and the makeup of the Oasis here, right? It's divided up into 27 sectors. It's kind of like a Rubik's Cube, almost. And it's divided into further into different zones. Some allow magic, some allow technology, some allow neither. Some allow both. And there are some zones where PvP and player versus player combat is allowed. And there's some areas where it's not, and those are safe zones. Parzival talks about, more into the exploration of the Oasis and why he really hasn't gone out to do it much, right? one of the things that he's doing in his world history class is his teacher, like, they take them on tours. So this is how Wade gets around to see the Oasis. They take them on virtual field trips, because like you can go to any place, right? And his teacher can take him on these field trips. So like, I imagine him just going on, like, seeing the pyramids of Giza, all this sort of stuff. The Oasis at this point, you know, has pretty much taken over the world. People use it for school, they use it for work, they use it for shopping, and they use it for socialization and having fun and recreation, vacation. You know, the Oasis is essentially the best version of Second Life ever created. But Wade can only use it for school because he's stuck on Ludus because he has no money. Ludus is the planet where he goes to school. And like I was saying, the Oasis charges real world money for pretty much anything that you want to do in the game. And Wade doesn't have any of that. Unemployment in 2045 is running more rampant than it's running right now. And this is even virtually speaking. Like, there'll be, I think in the text, it says there's like a 2-year waiting limit just to flip burgers. 2-year waiting limit just to flip burgers. But that ends chapter 4, guys. So what did you guys think about the reading this week? Any thoughts? Any questions? I dig the background it goes into with the characters, a bit deeper than the film. Yeah, it is. It's Snorlax. It is much deeper book than the film. Like, if your only experience with Ready Player One before was the movie, you're gonna be greatly surprised by the book, because the book is awesome. Again, there are differing schools of opinions upon Klein's writing, the way he develops his characters, and all of that, but I don't really care so much about that stuff. All I care about is whether or not the story is good. I read for story. I don't read for an author. I don't read for character development. I just want a good story. If you can tell me a good story and your book's easy enough to read, I will thoroughly enjoy it. Ready Player One is definitely one of those for me. To find all the details left out, like, you really have to read the book. And it will help make a lot more sense. Because Ready Player One just kind of doesn't hold your hand, which is like the movie. Like, the movie doesn't hold your hand, which I really like. Like, it just kind of just throws you into it right away, which is kind of how the book is too. It kind of just throws you into it. However, there is a lot. Don't get me wrong, there is going to be a lot of info dump. Like, there's probably going to be info dump at least once or twice per chapter. So be prepared for that. It's just the way of it. And I think the reason why it's done is because of that one-upmanship stuff, because to me, that's how it's mostly done. There's also some of it that's done with world building. I just wish I hadn't read the book before I watched that movie. See, I disagree. Although, you have a point. My only problem with the movie is the fact that the book exists. That's literally my only problem with the movie. Like, in all honesty, because like when I first saw it, I was kind of like, well, meh. But at the same time, I had a really awesome time watching that movie, and it made me tear up and it made me feel things. And I was like, dude, like, this was a good movie, but why am I so mad? And then I'm like, oh, I'm mad because I read the book. I just need to separate the two. I would have preferred to read it after watching the movie, like I did with Jurassic Park. See, I've never read Jurassic Park, Maddie. Is Jurassic Park good? Dude, that book is great. I think we had a copy of it when I was growing up, or I had a copy of it and I just never read it. I think I had a first printing of it, to be honest. I just never read it because I was in second grade. I didn't know, and I hated reading at that point. I'm old now. I love to read. I'll have to read that one. Well, everybody, that is it for session 1. Thank you guys so much. Next week, this week we will be reading chapters 5 through 9. So to the end of chapter 9. The last line in chapter 9 will be, "Then through the open door and ran out." That'll be for next week. Then we'll meet back here next Monday at 9 p.m. That'll be on October the 12th. We'll be meeting here at 9 p.m. October the 10th, this Saturday, we'll be having movie night. So movie night on Saturday in the Discord will be Bill and Ted. And we'll be doing that at 10 p.m. Saturday night in the CleverDingbat Discord. If you need to get in, it's !Discord. Also, if you guys don't forget, if you guys need the Ready Player One playlist, I will link to that down in the description below for you guys in Twitch chat, !Playlist. Also, there's a giveaway I'll be linking to down below, !Giveaway for you guys in Twitch chat, to win a copy of Ready Player 2. This will be given away on November the 24th and will be done on the movie night that we're going to be having for Ready Player 1 on November the 24th, which is a Tuesday. So the Tuesday kind of breaks the mold, but we're doing that because that's the day the book releases. I thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching this session of the Ready Player One book club. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel. Until then, be excellent to each other, and I'll see you guys in the next one.